Welcome to Module 1, Lesson 3. We're going over solving inequalities and absolute value equations. We don't have anything that we need from a previous lesson. But our learning objectives, we have 3 of them. We need to solve inequalities. We need to write the solution in both set notation or set builder notation. I always referred to it and heard it as set builder notation. But the textbook in your homework usually just says set notation, so those do mean the same thing. And interval notation. We need to be able to solve absolute value equations, and then we're going to put absolute value and inequalities together and start solving absolute value inequalities and write those solutions in interval notation. I'm guessing you've already used this QR code since you are here. But as a reminder, you can pause and rewind as often as you need, so this lecture is at your pace. And then you need to look at your course schedule to see when this lesson's homework is due. Along with this intro video, I want to just go ahead and take this time to review our inequality symbols, and then we can just dive right into the rest of the lesson. So as a review of your inequality symbols, we really only have 4. We have less than, which is this symbol, less than or equal to, which is the same symbol with a bar underneath, greater than or equal to with a bar underneath. And then this one's not really an inequality symbol, but I thought this would be a great time to introduce it. We're going to need it first, I think, lesson 6, which is a not equal to, which is an equal sign with a little slash through it. Okay, but your 4 inequality symbols are these top 4 right here. And so if you need to pause this video and write this column and graph them, please do so. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but just to kind of explain, you have exclusion and exclusion, or inclusion and exclusion. I think I said the same word twice, but you have inclusion and exclusion. So is that number included or not? When you have less than, greater than, or not equal to, whatever that number is not included in your solution set. And so we represent that by an open circle or by parentheses. So those mean the exact same thing. You can see on these first 2 right here, I did parenthesis and parenthesis, and then down here I did an open circle. I could have done open circles up here as well. Those mean the exact same thing. And then when you have less than or equal to, the key is that or equal to, and then greater than or equal to, it means that number is included. So now it has a closed circle or a bracket. So I used brackets on these graphs, but that would be the same as a closed circle. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about these graphs, but more specifically, I want to make sure we understand our interval notation. So our first inequality here was that x is less than a. So a represents some number. And so on my graph, I am shading starting at whatever that number is right here at A, and I am shading everything to the left. 1, because it's less than. So these represent all of my numbers less than. And 2, you can just use that symbol as an arrow. It's pointing to the left, we're shading to the left. And because it's less than and not less than or equal to, it's going to get a soft bracket, meaning this number is not included. So in interval notation, how do we represent this solution right here that we've graphed? Well, you can see it goes from negative infinity is the smallest number. You always want to go from kind of left to right. So it's going, the smallest number it's going to touch is negative infinity. And any infinity is always going to get parentheses, whether it's positive or negative. And then it's going to go all the way up to A. And because A has a parenthesis here, we're going to put a parenthesis here. Now, I'm using this notation here because I have an infinite solution set. Let's say that A is 10. I cannot just list every number that is less than 10 because that's going to go on forever. Ooh, excuse me, all the way to negative infinity, right? So I can't just sit here and say that this is 9, 8, 7 because it's going to go forever and forever and forever. Not only can I not list every negative or every number that is less than 10 as a whole number, as an integer, but think about all those infinite numbers in between your whole numbers. So between 7 and 8, you have 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.41, 7.42. You have so many numbers in between those whole numbers. So if I can't list every number here that is shaded, we have to use interval notation. And so this is saying my solution set is every possible number between negative infinity and whatever this number is here. Okay, so this one's very similar. This one's going from negative infinity to a again. But now that we have a bracket here, we'll have a bracket here. And you'll notice in my math lab, when you put something in like this that has a parenthesis and a bracket, it's going to show up red. But it is right. So when you click submit, it's going to count that answer right, but it is going to be highlighted. So it is possible to have different brackets in here, where one bracket and one parenthesis. And so you can see that these are almost identical. The only difference is this one includes that number. So if we're saying that a equals 10, this one will go all the way up to 9.9, 9.99, 9.9999999, but never 10. This one goes all the way up to 10. So literally one number difference between these two solution sets. So then greater than, you can see here, x is greater than a. So we start here at a, and we're using this as an arrow, or we just know that that's greater than. So we're shading every number that is greater than a. And so what does that look like? Well, now this one starts at a, and it's got a parenthesis here. So I'm going parenthesis here, and it's going all the way to infinity. Infinity will always get parentheses. This one's almost identical, but now we have bracket a to infinity. And then this one here, when we have does not equal, and remember, this is again not technically an inequality, but we will need this in the future. It means it cannot equal just this one number, but it can equal any infinite number before that and any infinite number beyond that. So we have kind of two different sections here. Every number less than a, so that is negative infinity. Oops, let's make that a little bit better. Negative infinity to a, and because a is not included, that gets a parentheses, and then we'll put the u for the union. And now we have to talk about here every number greater than a. So a to infinity. One thing I want to make note of before I end this video is that whenever you have a negative infinity, that is always going to come first, because we always want to list these from least to greatest, and there's nothing less than negative infinity. And when you have positive infinity, that's always going to come last, because again, if we're going least to greatest, there's nothing bigger than infinity. So negative infinity is always first with a parenthesis. Positive infinity is always last with another parentheses.